Hi all and welcome back to another episode of the ICIS Energy Foresight podcast. It's a special episode. We are back from eWorld, the leading energy trading fair in Europe. And for that, we wanted to slightly change the format and give you the mic to ask us questions. First of all, thanks for all of you that stopped by our stand and all of you that sent a question across. I had a difficult job to try to select 3 questions for this episode, and I hope that I did my best. So let's go one by one with the 3 questions and then we'll try to answer those. The first question we got from a lot of you is around demand. It has come in different versions, but essentially you all wanted to have an opinion or a view on whether we see a strong rebound coming and what's the magnitude of the rebound that we would expect. Let's frame the problem first. In 2023, gas demand in Europe fell by 8% on a year-to-year basis, which was a massive drop if compared to the 5-year average, something in the range of a 20% drop. On power side, the fall was less pronounced, so 3.1% down electricity demand in 2023 compared to 2022, and 6.5% lower compared to the 5-year average. We estimated that weather, so milder temperatures, accounted for roughly 20% of that drop, while the rest was mainly driven by lower industrial output, so lower industrial demand, especially in the first half of the year, and higher contribution from other sources on the power side, specifically nuclear and hydropower in the second half of the year, which damped gas demand. The outlook for this year remains quite subdued. There are some positive drivers for the industry in 2024, but in the second half of the year, we expect European gas demand to move up by 8% compared to last year, but so effectively remaining below the 5-year average. And while we expect a minor contribution coming from the power sector, the bulk of the recovery will be driven by industries and residentials. And we have already started to see a slight industrial rebound in the first part of the year. We are more bullish than other organizations, especially if we compare our forecast to the International Energy Agency, which sees a 2.8% recovery this year. On the power side, demand is expected to increase by 2.9%, again driven by industries and the residential sector. And as for gas, our outlook is slightly more positive compared to the IEA ones, which sees a 1% recovery this year, mainly driven by the residential sector. The second question that you guys asked is around geopolitical events, specifically the Red Sea disruptions, and whether we see that as something long-lasting. As for all geopolitical events, it's very difficult to have a certain view. So we tend to apply common sense and a probabilistic approach around different possibilities. I think that what we are potentially looking at in the case of a long disruption of that route, so actually LNG flows not coming through the Red Sea and crossing the Suez Channel, there are 2 options. On one side, energy companies could attempt to rearrange global trade and make shipping more efficient in a sense. So, for example, US companies that had to deliver a cargo to Japan could do a swap with a Middle East company that wanted to sell into Europe. So the US company could deliver a cargo into Europe instead, and the Middle East company could then deliver that to Asia. But customers would receive a cargo and then overall shipping times would be cut. So it's a win-win solution that could potentially also be a sound response to the critical situation that we're still experiencing at the Panama Channel. In this case, company may avoid to use the Red Sea at all. It's feasible. It requires a level of coordination which is not straightforward, but it's definitely an option on the table that could potentially make LNG trade much more efficient. The second option is the one that Qatar is already using in a sense. So rerouting cargoes via the long way, so effectively circumnavigating Africa. That slow things down and potentially it would put a strain on the ship market in terms of number of ships that then would be needed to manage the global LNG trade. And furthermore, that would add cost in terms of ship fuel. The big cost would be probably related to, let's say, the ship fuel. Consider that you need an extra 10 days for that route, and ultimately you would need more ships, as we said. It's an option on the table. It's probably going to be limited. Also, if we look at the share of Qatari LNG coming into Europe last year was roughly 13% of the overall LNG import. And if we factor that in, if we compare to the overall supply, it's definitely a marginal share. And third and final question, what's the role of renewables, the increasing share of renewables on the forward curve price, and whether we gonna see a massive impact this year or a more pronounced impact compared to the previous years? So last year it was a record year for renewables in Europe with roughly 55 gigawatt of additional solar capacity installed and 17 gigawatt of wind capacity that came to line last year. Overall, solar and wind contribution in terms of electricity generation grew by 15%. So we're talking about roughly 85 terawatt hour in 2023. And that is already starting to have an impact on the forward curve if we look at spreads, so clean dark spreads and spark spreads. That's what we're talking about here is effectively the margins that coal and gas power stations can get by selling electricity forward on the market. At the moment, it's unprofitable for utilities to hedge baseload power, this thermal generation. And so effectively what we could expect is that conventional power stations, so gas and coal power stations, will be pushed into peak hours in 2024. The only exception, unsurprisingly, is Q4 2024, where effectively we have a drop of solar generations coming, so a higher share of conventional power coming to the market. In the last 16 years, this was not unusual, but still not super common to see negative spreads, and this is an interesting development to watch. Renewables do not need to be hedged in the typical sense, or better, they are more exposed to short-term variability related to weather that brings a different set of problems. Renewable energy from wind and solar is weather dependent and introduces supply shocks to the electricity markets. Up until last year, or up until recently, that was mainly a problem linked to the day-ahead market, but we're starting to see that more and more reflected into the power forward curve. And the intermittency of renewable generation is definitely a game changer, especially from a trading perspective. The forward premium may increase significantly for maturity periods where there is a large negative covariance of spot prices and renewable output going forward. Another interesting element to watch, and another interesting element that you would need a forecast for. As always, thanks again for tuning in. I hope that was useful and this was an enjoyable episode as well for you all. As you can obviously get access to everything we do by accessing to our website or the link that you see appearing on the screen. And as always, to the next time.